Hello, this is Dr. K. In this series of videos, we're going to use transactional business logic to place orders in our Affable Bean project. One of the key things that we will see in this tutorial is how the EJB container effectively takes care of the transaction for us. We create an appropriate enterprise Java bean that contains a method that performs multiple writes to a database. We add a few simple annotations to our EJB, and we're guaranteed that the method corresponds to the ACID properties for transactions, particularly atomicity. In other words, the transaction is all or nothing. Either all writes are completed successfully or none of them are, and the database reverts to its pre-transaction state. The EJB container takes care of this for us. Let's take a look at the big picture of what we're going to do in order to process an all or nothing transaction. We're going to create a stateless session bean called Order Manager. The bean will be part of the session package that contains our other session beans. The stateless annotation indicates that this is a stateless session bean, and the transaction management annotation indicates that any transactions that occur in the class are managed by the container. The most important method in this class is place order. The annotation transaction attribute indicates that a new transaction is created when this method is called. The arguments that this method takes include all of the fields in the form from the checkout page. That is, the method takes all of the information needed to create a new customer record. The place order method also takes the current shopping cart object, which contains all of the products that are being ordered, along with their quantities. In the implementation of this method, three important helper methods are called: add customer, add order, and add ordered items. Add customer creates a customer and adds it to the database. Now, before we go any further, I want you to know that what I just said is an oversimplification. What the add customer method actually does is add the customer entity to something called the persistence context, which is an intermediate state before data goes into the database. We'll talk more about the persistence context later, but for now, we're going to keep things simple and say that the entities are added to the database. With that in mind, let's continue. Add customer creates a customer and adds it to the database. Add order creates a customer order and adds it to the database. And add order items creates one or more ordered products and adds them to the database. If there are no problems with adding these entities to the database, the transaction is committed and the entities stay in the database. However, if any problems do arise, the database will be rolled back to the state it was in before the transaction. Let's look at what happens when there are no failures in the transaction. First, the customer is added to the database. Next, the customer order is added to the database. Finally, all associated ordered products are added to the database. In this scenario, everything worked out fine. The transaction is committed, and all of the data remains in the database. Now let's look at an example where a failure occurs. Suppose the first couple of steps go fine, just like in the previous example. The customer is added, then the customer order is added. And then we try to add the ordered product records. But suppose something goes wrong while we're trying to add the second ordered product record. In this case, the transaction must be canceled, and all of the records we added will have to be removed.